promise to be powerful. In-depth knowledge, specialist knowledge. It's very likely you'd hear something today that you've not heard before. So stay on the call, stay with us to the end of the program, and next slide, please. Israel. All right, so to officially kick the meeting started, you pardon me for not having the updated national anthem. Yeah, I think it was signed into law today. So for the sake of how do I put it, we just have to recite the old national anthem. We'll use it in place of our opening prayer. The tendency of having a mixed religion here is there. So we'll use the common umbrella that binds us together as a nation. So I don't think the audio is available, so I'm just going to recite it. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace, unity. Amen. Next slide, please, Israel.
This is instead of the national anthem.
All right, so today meeting, please go back to the agenda. All right, today's meeting is scheduled to run for an hour and 30 minutes. And this is the agenda on the screen. To take notes, we'll be having the main agenda of today is the speaker's presentation on the topic I mentioned earlier for a duration of 35 minutes, which will be followed immediately by a question and answer series. So let's do well to stay on the call while the teacher is presenting, pay attention, prepare your questions, learn something. That's the whole idea of today's meeting. Next slide, please. So quickly, I'll be introducing the moderator for today's section in the person of Israel Emmanuel. Let me quickly read out his profile. So Mr. Israel Emmanuel is a graduate of petroleum engineering at the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, Futo. He has interned with NNPC as an undergraduate engineering intern trainee, and immediately after his NYSC, he had the privilege to work as a technical support engineer with Briggs Trade Offshore at Lagos. He's currently with SEPCO as a MWD field engineer. As a young lad, he believes in self-development and therefore seizes every opportunity to learn from those who are ahead of him, especially the players in the industry. No wonder he has a platform of over 2,000 persons where he shares knowledge on career growth. Emmanuel Israel is a young professional of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. He's a member of the YP arm of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Port Harcourt section. Considering we can clap, let's use the welcome, clap welcome icon, and Emmanuel Israel, the ball is in your courts. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas, for the introduction. I want to appreciate the YP management team for this opportunity. Once again, it's always a privilege to do this Okay, so please kindly confirm you can hear me, sir.
Yeah, apt. Audio is clear.
All right. All right. Okay, so before we dive into the main agenda for today, please let's pay attention to the following safety precautions. Safety is paramount in SP. Okay, so in this meeting, you are not expected to be on this call while driving. You're not expected to be on this call while driving. Ensure you can still hear the fire alarm just in case you're in an environment that is, is not completely safe. So please pay attention to the fire alarm, even if you're on your headset. Also, you are also expected to mute your mic when you are not speaking, except when the opportunity is given to you, you cannot mute your mic. Please raise up your hands if you have any reason to speak. You can use the icon or emoji in the meeting to raise it to indicate that you have something to say. Be at alert and ensure you're aware of your environment. Okay, use the chat button. Use C for comments. If you have any comments you want to make on the chat box, please use C so we all know it's a comment. And of course, you can also use Q if you have any question to ask. Okay, so ensure you stay safe while on the call. All right, so quickly, I want to welcome the YP chair to give us his opening remark. Welcome, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Israel, please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, yeah, so this is a welcome to everyone on the call for our May Insight Country Forum. And the topic for today is very interesting: well control incident, preventing well control incidents. And well control incidents can have severe consequences, actually, ranging from loss of life, environmental damage, significant financial losses, because we know that the oil and gas industry, millions of dollars is being put up just to drill a particular well, and you don't want to actually lose profit. At least you want to gain. So it's very, very important to know how to mitigate. Just like what the YP technical team said earlier, be open-minded. It's very possible that you would hear something that you don't know about well control or preventing well control incidents. It's very, very possible, because we have the seasoned professional in the house taking this topic, and it's also very possible that you can have some best practices that you can even include in your profession. That for those that are practicing, but I know definitely there are persons that are practicing, or persons that are still learning, or persons that have not had experience at all. Their practices can include to make a more safe, profitable, and sustainable operation. So please pay rapt attention and welcome. This is one of the platforms we try to develop ourselves as young professionals, Port Harcourt section. So please make sure you take notes and let your questions come in handy. Thank you. Yeah. Look forward to this. Thank you. Can you hear me, Israel?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for that. So we also want to wanted to use this opportunity to please recognize the senior members on the call with us. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I want to recognize my YP mama, and also the current assistant secretary of the board, 2023-2024 board. The Dorcas Kuro is on the call. Thank you, ma, for joining. Also, the ALP team lead, Mr. Sustainable. Okay, so that's that for now. we can have more of these sections later on. So back to you, Israel. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful session. Okay, so let's forge ahead. So we have a very interesting topic for us. Quickly, we'll introduce our speaker. Before we introduce our speaker, just like the YP chair said, the well control in the oil and gas industry cannot be overemphasized. As a matter of fact, for safety reasons, environmental concern, and cost optimization, it is essential that we pay attention to what has to do with well control. Well control is a technique that is used in the oil and gas industry when you want to drill or when you want to carry out workover, and of course, completion and the rest of them. And while drilling in the oil and gas industry, you must pay attention to safety, and of course, well control must be put into consideration. Right? So it is essential that we pay attention to this to avoid influx of formation fluid that will lead to kick and possible blowout. So today, we want to introduce our speaker that will treat this topic. Olorun Soba is a well advisor. Sorry for that. Olorun Soba is a well learning advisor and certified trainer in Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited. Wherever he is currently teaches well limited, where he currently teaches well engineering courses, building competence and capability of well engineers. He is an accredited IWCF instructor and a simulation learning specialist, taking several well control, stockpile prevention, and coil tubing courses using advanced trainings, simulators, and incorporating human factors principles. He is also a Shell Global coach for the industry recognized Wells Round I-1 and Round 2 program. He has had several years of experience supervising the execution of drilling, completions, and work activities in different areas, including HPHT project. He is passionate about coaching and mentoring new technical professionals and facilitates well engineering courses as a subject matter expert to undergraduate and postgraduate students in Nigerian universities. Toba holds the bachelor's degree in petroleum engineering from the University of Ibadan. Ladies and gentlemen, let's humbly welcome Mr. Toba take over the session. Mr. Toba, you're welcome, sir. You can have the floor.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Toba, please confirm you can hear me.
Thanks a lot, Israel. Confirm that you can hear me as well.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to be sharing my screen. Just let me know when you can see that as well.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks to the YP chair and the section for this opportunity to share some of the knowledge gleaned so far on well-controlled incidents. So this evening I'll be taking us through preventing well-controlled incidents. Like Israel said, I instruct and assess IWCF courses. That's International Well Control Forum courses for drilling. And normally for topics like this, we would usually take it through about 4 days. But in the very few minutes that I have, what I'll try to do is to focus on some key concepts that are necessary and probably introduce a couple of new things that are important for all of us in this industry. Please, at any point in time, if for any reason my slides are not showing, you will just kindly let me know. So I will just quickly this evening talk about why is well control important, and then I'll share a couple of thoughts around the impact of well control incidents based on history and statistics. And then I'll do a quick deep dive into some focus areas around people, principles, procedure, and equipment. I would like to call them the four lenses through which we would look at well control and preventing well control incidents in this meeting, and then we'll have time for Q&A. Yeah. So why is well control important? Um, I heard Israel mention a bit about kick and blowout. Typically, when you talk about kick, you are referring to the flow of reservoir fluid into the well bore initially, and then subsequently, if that is not controlled, it can escalate to a major event that would call a blowout. Um, and blowout has huge consequences. Um, so if you look at what we would call a risk assessment matrix, somewhere down there, you'd see that, the consequences of a blowout centers around fatalities, right, with regards to people, um, and a major impact on assets or damage, a massive effect on the environment, and of course, significant impact on the reputation of the company involved, right? So it's important, in the industry that we understand and manage, and of course subsequently prevent well-controlled incidents as best as we can. So this slide speaks to a couple of incidents that have happened, well-controlled incidents that happened in the time past, and some have happened recently, even in Nigeria. This does not speak to all; it's numerous. So you've had a couple of shallow gas incidents, both offshore and onshore. We had the Macondo incident in 2010, which is quite popular, especially for those who watched the Deepwater Horizon. 11 people lost their lives, and BP spent, over $60 billion in terms of fines and remediation. And it's cuts across different locations, land, you know, shallow offshore, deep offshore, and different kinds of rigs, so semi subs, and even land rigs. And all of them, if you look at all of them, a key recurring theme is the impact, like I said before, on lives, um, as well as the damage to assets and reputation. So, so when you look at the impact, it's significant. We're talking about non-productive time. We're talking about the cost incurred just to more or less attempt to fix things. We're talking about the disposal of hydrocarbons. All of a sudden, those hydrocarbons that you wanted to bring to surface in a controlled manner, you've lost control, and the environment is deeply affected. And of course, damaged equipment, and a whole lot of other things. So sometimes when we look at the well impact, we look at it in terms of the immediate. If you have a blowout, the immediate impact, deaths, injuries, pollution, shutdown of production, cost, and then of course you have a long-term impact as well, damage to company's reputation, um, probably revoking of license to operate for the company involved, the huge remediation needed to manage environmental pollution, and then of course deferment of production. Everything just shuts down basically, right? Um, and so it's quite significant, right? So and it cuts across different spheres. So what I would like to do in terms of speaking about preventing well control incidents is to look at it from these four areas. So I'm going to talk a bit about people. I'm going to mention something that we would call human factors. It's not quite popular in the industry, but I think it's very critical. And then I'll look at procedures, some of the principles, and then equipment. Like I said, because of time, what I will try to do as much as possible is to just touch on the key concepts. So, preventing well control incident. For me, um, doing that, the first focus area has to do with people. And this brings me to what we call human factors. And let me give a little bit of background to this. We have thousands, and when I mean thousands, several thousands of flights that happen every day, um, you know, all over the continent and all over the world, right? One of the things that the IOGP, which is the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers, realized was that despite the number of passengers, if you look at just even America alone, the millions of people that fly every day, there are so few incidents that have happened, right? Even with the number of flights, right? And for us in the oil and gas industry, drilling well intervention, workover completions, the activity is not as much, in terms of count as the aviation industry. Yet the aviation industry has been more or less pretty much safe in terms of their records. Yeah, maybe a couple of mishaps here and there, but not too significant. And when a research was done, we realized that most of the errors that have happened in the oil and gas industry when it comes to well control incidents centers around human errors, right? Um, and the impact of that is huge, right? So we're looking at factors that influence decision making of people. We're looking at psychology, and so the experience from the aviation industry recently, you know, is being pulled in to influence, the oil and gas industry, especially when it comes to well control. And so there are five key elements. We're talking about situational awareness, we're talking about leadership, we're talking about communication, talking about teamwork and decision making. So your equipment can be spot on, your well controlled equipment, and we'll touch on that briefly shortly, can be fit for purpose, can be certified, right? You might have the best procedures in the world, your work instructions are perfect, yeah. But then there's a bit around the human behavior. There's a bit around, 100 or 120 persons working together on a rig, seeking to get oil and gas out, and safely into the tanks, right? And what has become very important is that without communication, without proper teamwork, without awareness of situations, how has your situation changed? Without proper decision making, most of the incidents will typically occur more frequently than they should. And then, of course, leadership by the key personnel. So I would like to start, in terms of preventing well control incidents, to start with this. You know, the Macondo incident, when they did the investigation, for example, a lot of it had to do with these human factors. A lot of it. In fact, statistics will tell you that most of the incidents, well control incidents that have happened, are due to human errors. How do your drillers, how does the driller, the mud engineer make the decisions? How do the mud loggers work together with the company supervisors and the drillers and the rig crew, right? So that teamwork, that communication is important. I've been on a rig where they were doing a transfer from a mud pit and it wasn't properly communicated and it had huge impact, with regards to well control. So that's the bit, around human factors. Again, of course, when you look at people, we're talking about preventive well control incident. The industry tends to put a lot of focus on trainings and certification. So down here you will see a simulation center. Good enough, I think a couple of persons will be visiting this place this week. Um, but the basis is, like I said, about the aviation industry. One of the things that came out from the findings was that pilots go through a lot of trainings using simulators. So it teaches them how to respond to changes, teaches them how to make better decisions, and so there's a lot of shift towards simulation-based trainings. But generally, you have bodies like industry regulatory bodies like IWCF, IOGP, the IEDC, that try to ensure that key personnel involved in well-controlled operations are trained and properly certified. Then the other bit is around drills, right? So drills is more or less preparing people, how do you manage changes? How do you manage situations, right? So focus is usually on what I would call the 3 Ps: the people, the procedure, and the plant or the equipment, as the case may be. And what usually we tend to do on the rig side is to do drills as frequently as possible, as outlined in your program, in your work program, right? So you have a couple of drills around pit drills. You're checking the response of the drillers and the crew to changes in volume, right? You have strip drills, choke drills, trip drills, a couple of drills. Um, One of the things that is shown is that even when there's a well-controlled incident, the amount or the extent or the volume, for example, of kick you take is significantly impacted by the response time of your team, right? So, um, how quickly does the crew shut in the well? I'm going to touch on that very quickly. That has an impact on the amount of influx volume that you pick in, right? So it's important that drills are done. You're getting the people, the crew, bring them up to speed, getting them adequately trained, to respond to situations when or if they do happen. Yeah, so let's look a bit around the principles. There are key principles when it comes to well control. Understanding those principles are key, yeah, because if you understand those principles, then you can easily prevent well control incidents. A key principle is the principle around what we usually will call hydrostatic pressures. Um, and the fact is that liquids exert hydrostatic pressure. The hydrostatic pressure is basically a function of densities of the fluid and height, usually what we call the true vertical depth, or the TVD. And this is significant to, in terms of managing well control, and I'll show that later. Um, Pressures and height, or depth, regards to fluid, is huge. So your liquids exert hydrostatic pressures, and those pressures are a function of density and height. So in this slide, just speaks to a very popular pressure equation. And for me, when I teach IWCF, this for me is the foundation, is the basis of the class. If you understand this principle, well, the principles around pressures, then you can understand the principles behind maintaining proper well control, right? So the hydrostatic pressure equation speaks around density times height to vertical depth. So you could have different fluids with the same density, in this case 0.585, but at different depths exerting different pressures. I always give this illustration of, if you have a bottle of water, same size of bottle of water, and you put just water in, if you weigh it, it's going to be different if you put honey in that same bottle, or if you put something like palm oil, right? Because palm oil or honey is more or less thicker or denser, right? So pressures are a function of the density of the fluid and the height. And this is important, and I'll share that later, because the foundation of well control is around maintaining primary well control when drilling. And that well control, is driven by your fluid, by your drilling fluid. Let me touch on another concept called barriers. This is usually not maybe spoken too much about, but it's important, right? So your barriers basically are any system or device that you use to confine or contain fluid or pressures within the confines of the well, which is what basically we want to do. So whether you're drilling, you're doing walkover, you're doing well intervention or completions, you to release them in a controlled manner, through your being mechanical or fluid barriers, and but all barriers have certain requirements, and it's important that you verify those barriers. So usually we talk about you talk about pressure testing, to verify some of those barriers, weight testing, and some other things. But there are key requirements: fluid barriers, mechanical barriers. I always say that for me, no matter the construction activity, well construction activity you're doing, understanding the concept of barriers is key. Is very key. So if you look at this, for example, when you're drilling, you could have different barriers, primary and secondary barriers. Your secondary barriers is like the redundancy barrier, or like this, or like the backup, right? And then if you're doing walkover production, you could have barriers around your packers, your production casing, your production tubing, the wellhead, the Christmas tree. But it's important that the barriers are in place, right? Either when you're drilling or doing a walkover or doing production. The next concept is around risk management, and I'm trying to build to somewhere. Um, and the principle or the concept behind risk management is that there's something that is always called an hazard, anything that has the potential to cause harm, right? So if you have an object that is hanging at the top of something, that object can drop and kill someone. Um, Threat is anything that releases that hazard. And when that hazard is released, it leads to an event, what we call a top event. And if that top event is not properly managed, it could escalate, in terms of consequence. And one of the things that is important to highlight is that there are barriers in place for all of these things, up to even beyond top events. So you have control barriers, you have mitigating barriers. So basically, how do I prevent, for example, my hydrocarbons from coming up to surface, right? In this. So you have your drilling mud, for example, acting as a primary barrier, and I'm going to show that shortly. But the principle is that you have barriers to manage risk, to you have barriers in place, either primary or secondary barriers, to help you, you know, drill safely and perform your work as required. So what are the three levels of well control? And with some of the concepts we've explained, there are three levels. So you have the primary control, which is the first one. It's a prevention, it's like a preventive barrier. Remember I talked about barriers. So you're in drilling, and I'm focusing more on drilling right now. So your drilling mode is your primary barrier. And remember, I said the concept of hydrostatic pressure, and I said hydrostatic pressure is a function of what? Density and what? And height. So even if you have the mod of the required density, right, and and it is the height is not full, or your hole is not full, right, then the hydrostatic pressure required or exerted by that mode is not as it should be. So if you want to say your drilling mode is a primary barrier, then the mode rate must be according to specification and your hole must be full. And if for any reason you lose primary control, we have a secondary barrier or secondary control, and that method has to do with your BOPs, your blowout preventers, your equipment. Um, and if that fails, like in the Makoni incident, that escalates. Remember I talked about consequences, right? So in that case, you need specialists, some of the wild well cats to come and manage that. Basically, you are in a blowout scenario, and that's very difficult to manage. So your primary well control, we always want to strive for that when it comes to drilling and workover operations, and it relies on the use of hydrostatic pressures, exerted by your wellbore fluid to control the formation pore pressure down there, right? So we can, however, lose that primary well control, and the concept is around, maybe two basic things. When the hydrostatic pressure exerted by that mud, that primary barrier, is not enough to overcome the formation pore pressure. So you are drilling through rocks with hydrocarbons. Those formations have their pore pressures, and if your primary barrier is no longer greater, then you have lost primary well control. And that could happen if, for example, the formation pore pressure is greater. So when you drill through overpressured formations, typically this happens in exploration wells. Most times in that case, you have very little data. You are predicting pore pressures, and your predictions sometimes might not be spot on. But on development wells you developed over a period of time, you have enough PVT data, reservoir fluid, and all of that. You can predict the formation pore pressures. The second bit is around, due to cases that affect either the mud density. Remember, again, hydrostatic pressures is a function of density and height. So if you swab, if your fluid level falls or your fluid density drops, and that's why sometimes when I'm on the rig and I tell the mud man or the mud engineer, make sure that your mud properties or your mud weight is not diluted, your tanks are properly covered. It's because even if you have your mud full, but it's not the required density, then you've lost primary well control. So all of that speaks around, swab kicks in the or drilling kicks. The key thing to highlight is that a lot of well control incidents are from in development wells, tripping, human error, like I highlighted before. But we have in place a system, things that can help us. So we have what we call warning signs, right? Indicators, just like people predict the weather and say, oh, a hurricane or tornado is coming up. We have weak signals that there's danger ahead. And then when you have a kick indicator, that's a strong signal. That in that case, your influx has entered into the wellbore. But your kick warning signs are signals that there's trouble. So you could have increase in the rate of penetration, what we usually call, a drilling break, change in cutting size. And that's why Shaker's man, would always monitor the cuttings coming out, changes in mud properties, um, gas readings, and shale density decrease. So many factors. All of these are warning signs. They are signs to tell you that something is likely about to happen, or you are drilling into a formation that is over pressured. You need to make some adjustment, right? Whereas when your kick has come into the wellbore, when you have an influx, you have positive indications. So basically, in drilling, we have two return flow rates. That's the rate of return. So something light has entered your wellbore, gas maybe, for example, um, and the return flow rate has suddenly increased. The rate of return has increased, right? Or you have increase in the pit levels, so the volume in your pit has increased. All of these are positive indicators, and you need to shut in the well. So we have some devices. This is a kick detection device. It's a flow shoe. This is a paddle. So you see this paddle measures the rate of return of flow. So as fluid is banging it and passing through it in your flow line, it measures to say, okay, the rate of return is maybe about 40%. If there is an increase and suddenly something is gushing through it, this paddles this paddle moves faster, and then it tells you that hey, something is happening. There's fluid in there, and then of course you have your pit volume. Just measures the volume of your tank. That's what we call pit, your mud tanks, basically. The next concept is around trip management, and like I said, because a lot of incidents happen around human errors, so it's important that we measure. We have a system to manage our tripping. Tripping is when you're running in and pulling out your pipes, your drill pipes in hole, right? And we have a trip tank basically that helps us do that. The trip tank is just a small volume tank that helps you take significant, measurement of change in volume when you're running a pipe. And unfortunately, I can't make so much of an illustration, but I always illustrate this by saying if you pick a bottle of water and you dip maybe a pen inside, Archimedes principle, right? When you dip that pen, the height of that water will increase because what you're dipping is displacing a volume be coming out and should be going back inside your trip tank. So way, you need to have a way of measuring it to say, and the reason basically is because, like I said, your hydrostatic pressure is a function of the height of your fluid. So you need to make sure that your hole is full, at every point in time. So let me speak around some procedures. Um, yeah, you have situations where suddenly, for any reason, your primary well control is lost, and then your secondary well control is you need to kickstart that. So you need to shorten the well. If you have an influx, you have well control incident, you're drilling. Um, Typically, we have maybe soft shorting and the hard shorting. The hard shorting is usually preferred because it's faster. Basically, what you're saying is there is something that is closed. You have a choke that is closed, um, and then your BOPs, you are closed before this remote control HCR valve is open, right? So that's your heart shutting basically. I'm going to speak a bit around this, but let me just quickly move, right? So there are principles around your heart shutting. Shutting is just saying I have an influx, I need to shut in my well, I need to close, and more or less isolate the well bore. So you have a couple of equipment where your primary control has failed. You rely on a couple of well control equipment. The basic one is the secondary one is your blowout preventer. And here at the top you have what you call, if you see the spherical bag shape, is your annular preventer. You have a couple of blind shear ram. In this case, your blind shear ram will cut the pipe and seal and seal the well bore. And you have your pipe rams. Your pipe rams basically cut or close across a specific size of pipe. So if you have a pipe that the outer diameter is 5 inch, your pipe rams will close around that 5 inch pipe. You have some other kind of rams what we call variable bore rams. Those ones close around a range of size of pipes. So you can have maybe 4 inch to 7 inch. So your variable bore ram will close around any pipe between that range, that specified range. But your pipe rams will close around a specific size of pipe, right? So your primary barrier, in this case, you're drilling, your mud has failed, you activate your secondary barriers, you can close your annular or you close your pipe rams, and seal the well bore. Um, and then when you want to begin to regain control, you have a couple of things that you use. Choke manifold is just a collection of valves that helps you remove that unwanted visitor that we call an influx out of the well safely, right? So you want that visitor to leave, but you want it to leave in a controlled manner, and minimize any subsequent damage. So you have your choke manifold that helps you do that, using a choke panel to control the choke valve there. And then you have your Kumu unit, collection of bottles that helps provide hydraulic energy needed to activate these preventers. And you have a mud gas separator that helps you vent out the gas. For example, you've had gas influx into your well, your mud gas, your MGS helps you separate out the gas and vent it, or divert it out. And you have your mud going back to the tanks. So these are basically your blowout event. So if your blowout preventer, so if you closing the well, you're shutting the well, you want to regain control, you want to kill the well. I'm not going to speak too much about this because of time, but there are different methods. The one that is used worldwide is the driller's method. Basically, it's two circulations, bring out the influx, first circulation, and then the second mode is pumping. Now you want to pump in a fluid, a drilling fluid that has greater weight than the formation pore pressure, what we call the kill mode. That's the driller's method. So two circulations. Your weight and weight is one circulation. You would wait, and then you will weigh up, right? You will weigh up that drilling fluid, to make it heavier than 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 what you would expect downhole, right? So remember, hydrostatic pressure is a function of density of the mud and the height. You have concurrent that can happen at a couple of times. You have reverse circulation. Typically, we use that in walkover operations where you're already producing and you circulate out. You circulate in through your annulus and out through your drill string. And blade, you know, which is usually not liked by subsurface people because you are injecting or forcing all of that fluid back into the formation. Yeah. So this basically because of time, it is just an overview of preventing well control incidents. To recap, remember I said looking at it from four areas of focus or four lenses. People, right? Competent people, people that are properly trained, understanding the concepts behind human factor, um, which is around communication, leadership, teamwork, situational awareness, um, and yeah, and then drills, testing them, preparing them in case any incident will happen. Then you have the key principles. Do not forget the hydrostatic pressures, the function of density and height, barriers, managing your risk, um, and we talked about primary control and trip management, and then equipment, which is like the secondary barrier. So your blowout preventers, your choke manifold and chokes, and your MGS and your cooling unit, and then of course the procedures. When you've had an influx, how do I shorten the well? I shorten the well, I close my VOP, I line up, and I'm ready to kill the well. What are my well control methods? How do I regain control or kill, you what has come into the well bore, right? So that's that from me within the time frame allotted for this session. Israel, let me hand over to you for additional for questions and answers. Um, yeah, thank you.
All right, Mr. Toba, thank you very much for that wonderful session. I personally, as a drilling engineer, because in the MWD subset drilling, I've really learned a lot. Okay? I've also learned again that it is essential that you pay attention to well control. And of course, the primary aspect, you know. So before we continue, before we go to the question and answer session, let's quickly call on the YP chair to just introduce some of our senior members on the call. And then when we return, we can attend to questions and answers. Once again, thank you very much, sir. And we look forward to you attending to questions. Mr. Justice, you can have the floor.
Okay, what a section. Thank you, Engineer Toba, for actually spent a whole lot. Yeah. So we just have recognized some senior members on the call and take pictures, then we'll go back to the question. Okay, so please pardon me, Engineer Toba. Okay, so on the call, we have the section chair, Engineer, what's your phone call? And just say hi, section chair of the section.
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Toba, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, ma. Also, I have the former young professional chairperson of Real Gwege on the call. Yeah. Also, I have the wife industry team lead, Joshua, the assistant symposium chair for the symposium that happened on the 4th of May. That was excellent and was the talk of the town. Tiamak North Branch is also on the call. He's also a well engineer with SPDC too. So also have Uti Otigo on the call too. Okay, so I will stop here and we also have Eunice Mahmoud. You're welcome on the call. So I'll stop here while we take pictures and we go back to the questions. Yeah, I can see that the chat box is filled. Yeah. Let's take pictures and we'll go back to the questions. So over to you now. You can take over.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions on the chat board, and I'm also sure that some other persons might want to also raise up their hand and ask questions. But let's just quickly attend to the ones on the chat box. So someone said, how does a fluid enter into the well bore? How does a fluid enter into the well bore? So I'm thinking the person is referring to how the influx of a formation fluid from formation into the well bore. So let's have you, sir.
Israel, please.
Yeah.
Wait. Let's just take pictures. Let's take pictures. Yeah, before we have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so please let's quickly put on our video while we take pictures. Let's quickly.
One more thing, Israel. Please stop sharing your screen so that we can have a few view.
No, Mr. Toba is, I think he's still on the screen. I think you may want to use it to answer some questions before we can continue.
Yeah, afterwards we can continue sharing because we take screenshots.
Okay, so Simeon, tell me when. Tell us when you're done. Simeon, are we good now? Can we continue? Okay, so I will take the silence for consent. Sure, okay. Israel, I think we can continue now. Yeah.
Simeon, kindly confirm you're done.
Yeah, please, let's go ahead.
All right, then. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so how does influx come in? Confirm you can hear me, Israel.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I tried to explain it before. There are two things, two key players. You have your primary barrier, which is your in drilling, which is your mud, and that mud exerts a pressure. The pressure is function of density and height of the mud, right? And then the second player is your formation pore pressures. So you have two concepts where the hydrostatic pressure exerted by the mud becomes less than the formation pore pressures, you know, you will take an influx. So basically, you've lost primary control. And I said that can happen maybe, for example, if your formation pressure is unexpectedly greater than the mud hydrostatic pressures, right? Because you are drilling an exploration well. The pore pressure you predicted, was not accurate. It's a prediction, and it happens a lot of times. So exploration. But the second bit is if that mud hydrostatic pressure reduces, either because, for example, your density reduced by dilution, or your hole was not full, and we talked about trip management. So the height, the main hydrostatic pressure is a function of density and height. So if that height should drop, either because of swabbing, a concept called swabbing, or you do not fill your hole properly, or your mud density has dropped, then you will lose primary control and you're going to have an influx into your wellbore.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So one other question. Please explain what is gas blow through in MGS during well control operations. I got that. He said, please explain what is gas blow
Okay.
through. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Gas blow through. So basically, when you have an influx and you are killing the well, you're trying to regain control. So you're going to be circulating fluid through this choke line. And I said there's a choke manifold, is a collection of valves. It helps you put some back pressure um, to keep your bottom hole pressures constant. A key principle of well kill is constant bottom hole pressures, right? So that fluid, gas, mud comes through this mud gas separator, right? Now, because gas is very light and all of that, the gas comes in here and is vented out. When this gas is being vented out, it exerts a back pressure down here. So if you want the gas to continue going up, there is a pressure that must be greater than the back pressure exerted by that gas. That pressure is supplied by mud in what we call a deep tube, this deep tube in the MGS. As long as the hydrostatic pressures of that mud in this deep tube is greater than gas, the gas will keep on going out. But if for any reason that gas, back pressure of that gas is greater than this mud hydrostatic here, gas will blow through and go to the shakers or your mud tanks area, and you don't want that to happen because gas is very flammable. So you want to divert this gas out. So that's where what we call a gas blow through. So gas has blown through this mud seal, and now it is going back to the shaker area, whereas it's normally supposed to go up through this vent and diverted away.
All right, thank you, sir. So the next question says, please, sir, enlighten more on swabbing. Enlighten more swabbing. So just throw more light on swabbing.
On swabbing, okay. So swabbing is an instance where you could lose um, the effect of your hydrostatic pressure of your mud. Typically, there are two types. There's the high volume swabbing. There's the what we call the low volume swabbing. Um, High volume swabbing is if, for example, you have a pack off around the beat, and so what happens is that um, something is blocking the annulus between your your hole or your elbow and your drill string and the BHA basically, right? So you have a vacuum created, and the height of fluid in your drill string inside your pipe will drop. Once the height of that drill string inside the pipe drops, it's going to affect your bottom hole pressure because remember your hydrostatic pressure is a function of height, right? So that's the high volume swabbing. Low volume swabbing, you know, you're pulling too fast. Remember, I tried to explain Archimedes' principle. The principle behind your trip tank is when you pull out of hole, you need to fill in back the space or the vacuum created because you pulled out pipes. So as you're pulling out pipes, your trip tank is helping you fill up the hole because you need to keep your hole full at all times. If you pull too fast, you're not going to be filling as fast as you're pulling. That height level will drop. Again, also a function of mud properties. If your mud is too thick, so it's not flowing as you should, right? So instead of it to quickly fill up, as it should, because of that viscosity, that resistance to flow, it's not moving as it should. That will cause low volume swabbing. So it's around usually tripping, pulling pipes in and out of hole, right? So that's swabbing.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I know you talked about want to maintain the hydrostatic pressure, of course, to be greater than that of the formation pressure. You also need to pay attention to your mud weight. Okay, so someone is like saying, please, sir, throw more light on how to control hydrostatic pressure. So I'm thinking he's a student, so please go ahead.
To control hydrostatic pressure, and that's why I talked about the concept of hydrostatic pressures. Control moderate, and control height. Hydrostatic pressure is a function of density and height. Make sure your mud density is up to spec. You have your mud balance on site. Mud engineer is checking, or mud man is checking mud rate in, mud rate out, 10 ppg. You want that mud rate to be spec. The height, your trip tank, I talked about it, your tripping sheet. If I'm pulling out one joint of pipe or a stand of pipe, I need to be filling back hole. So you're measuring that volume displacement, right? Because you want to keep your height filled up. So that's the basic principle behind hydrostatic pressures. If you can keep the drilling fluid, the mud weight high. Then I talked about dilution of the drilling fluid. I've seen some rigs where when it's raining, water is entering into the tanks where the mud is, and your mud gets diluted, right? So once it gets diluted, then the hydrostatic pressure is reduced. So that's basically around maintaining hydrostatic pressure.
All right, so the next question says, school textbook talks about primary and secondary well control, but today I'm hearing of tertiary control for the first time. Can you tell us more? So I think you should just maybe talk about it a bit, but of course brief because of our time, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so tertiary control is specialist, right? Remember it, and that's why I try to explain the concept of barriers, of threats, top event. Once you've left the era of secondary control, and remember your secondary control is most times by the mechanical devices, your blowout preventers. If it fails, you have a blowout, and that's why it's called a blowout preventer at the secondary control stage. It's meant to prevent blowout. Once blowout happens, you're in tertiary control. To recover, you need to drill what is called maybe a relief well to intersect that hydrocarbon. And remember when I shared some pictures of well control incidents, right? Now, in this case, most times your rig is burning. Nobody's going to go in there and start pumping anything. So you're going to go to a different location and do directional drilling to intersect those hydrocarbons and pump. They always tell you that if you want to quench fire, go to the source of the fire. Maybe, for example, if it's electrical, switch off the address the source. So that's what you want to do. But you can't go there in now. You have to go through a different well, drill directional drilling, go under and intersect. In that case, you need specialists, and there are not very many in the world. So you have some people called the boots and coots or the wild well specialists. In that case, it's tertiary. And most times you have to look at the risk very well, weigh it. Is it worth it? And none of that. Yeah. So that's tertiary control. Your preventers, secondary control has failed, and you have a blowout. And now you're just trying to do your best to manage it again.
All right, thank you, sir. So, Mr. Lotana Wadiki is asking, can employee competency level be classified under human errors?
Yeah. So yeah, and that's why I actually started with that. In terms of people with that focus area, right? So, um, but let me say this, that competence has shifted from just training. Everybody can read and pass, and that's why I talked about the simulation bit. You know, the behavioral aspect, the human factors principle. Which we use our simulation center, for example, to do. Where you bring people, you bring rig supervisor, this person is saying, Jila, do this, Jila is saying, do this, AD, blah, blah, blah. How do they communicate? How do they work as a team? So it's beyond just having the paper now, right? We're now incorporating, IOGP has recommendations now concerning human factors. Is incorporating, understanding the behavior of humans, you know, how do they work together? So all of that ties into competence, yes. And like you rightly said, this is a key focus area. Yeah.
All right, thank you, sir. This is the last question I'm seeing here says from Uche Ozigwe. He says, during underbalance drilling, how do you keep the well under control?
So under balance drilling is a different concept. Um, Usually we use that in where you have what we call tight reservoirs where permeability is not good enough. So you can imagine normally in normal drilling, conventional drilling, you are saying, oh, I don't want the hydrocarbons to come up to me. But in this case now, you know, you the hydrocarbons itself cannot really flow in. So what you want to do is to go under balanced. You're not worried because you're not going to get much. You can't try under balance drilling in the Niger Delta region where most of the reservoirs have very good permeability and they will just come in on you. So on that balance drilling, you don't mind taking an influx and you make a couple of you have a couple of systems, for example, what we call managed pressure drilling. There's an aspect of managed pressure drilling that deals with on the balance drilling. But that case, you are prepared. You are drilling now to say, let me have the influx in what is going to come in is not significant enough to hurt me. I can manage that, manage the pressures, manage pressure drilling, and then complete the well. So you do that, especially in the US, you have a lot of underbalance drillings in some regions of the world, but definitely not so far really Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, sir. That's the
Yeah.
last
So
question from the chat
yeah,
box.
so use your MPD system to manage well control in most of the balance drilling cases. Okay, thanks, Israel. Yeah.
All right, thank you, sir. So I have a question. From my end. I usually pay attention to circulating system when drilling is ongoing, when of course the mud engineers letting you know of the mud weight entering and of course the mud weight going out. So I want to, and I also know that they also recirculate the mud, of course, send it back in hole to continue drilling. I want to understand the technique used in ensuring that the mud weight maintains the original, of course, quantity, weight per se, before they send it back after going through all those, the shaker, the sanders, and all of that. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, so your mod is like the human blood. Your mod is the life. When you're draining, your mod is like it's like the human blood. It's the life of the well, and primarily because, like we said, it's that it that primary well control is done for drilling is done by the mod. So you want to make sure that the properties are spec, and to do that, you need to measure those properties. So the key concept of hydrostatic pressure is density. You have your mode balance to measure the density. Not just that, that mode is flowing, like Israel you said, you are circulating that mode. As it's flowing, it has its properties. So what we call mode rheology. So you have things like your viscometer, you have your mod labs on your rigs to measure all of that. So you want to measure things around filtrate loss, um, the plastic viscosity, the YP yield point, basically all around how is the mud flowing? Is the mud flowing well, right? Because apart from well control, your mud does other things. Your mud is carrying out those crushed rock pieces and all of that. So one of the things, because you want to keep your mud up to spec, your mud is bringing out dirt, right? So as it's bringing out those dirt or those crushed rock pieces, you sieve out those rock pieces. So you have a system on your rig, what we call the sieve system. That's what we call your solid control system. So your shakers, your desander, your desilter. Basically, it's like they are sieves. They are sieving out rock particles or particles of different sizes, right? So it's just the way we normally use sieves in our home. That's the whole principle, because you want your mud to be free. Remember, if your mud, for example, if you put a bottle of water and it's pure water, if you put sand particles inside that water, if you weigh it, it's going to have a different weight because those particles exert additional weight, right? So you want to sieve out some of those rock particles. So you have that full system, your circulation system, your sieve system, your solid control, your shakers, screens are sieving out the rock particles. You are measuring the flow behavior of your mud using your mud rheology in your mud lab. Your mud man is measuring the mud weight, and basically um, it's a full system of measuring devices. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir. That was really enlightening. Okay, so before we go, I just saw one other question on the chat box, so let's just quickly attend to it. I think two. Please, so these are just the two questions we'll take for today, and then if we have further questions, we can reach out to Mr. Toba. I'm sure he's going to share his LinkedIn profile with us before he leaves. Okay, so the first question is from a patient. So with underbalance drilling, wouldn't there be possible cases of formation damage? Is it possible to have a balance where formation pressure equals hydrostatic pressure?
Yeah. Okay. So let me take. It's possible to even have your mud hydrostatic pressures lower than your formation pressures. Ideally, normally you want it to be higher, and you even put a safety factor on top, what we call your trip margin. But in some cases, you can. Unfortunately, that was not an aspect, in this topic, but that's where we call the managed pressure drilling. So typically, we use that for high pressure, high temperature regions where we have what we call narrow drilling margin or drilling window, narrow margin for drilling. What that means is if your mode rate is too high, because you have static mode rate, you have when you are circulating your mode, there's a dynamic mode rate or ECD, it can fracture. So if your mode rate is too high, it can induce fractures. Once it induces fractures or holes, your mode level begins to drop. So you have a system where you can put your mode, make it even lower than the pore pressure when it is static. But you have your NPD system, managed pressure drilling system. Anytime your mud is static, your pumps are off. There is a surface back pressure. Your NPD gives you a surface back pressure. Anytime your pumps are on and you are now in a dynamic condition or the ECD margin, that ECD effect, that additional pressure from your dynamic mud weight is usually sufficient enough to now take you above the pore pressures. So the challenge is anytime you are static, you are below the pore pressure, but you now compensate that with a surface back pressure system. So we call all of that principle, the managed pressure drilling principle, um, yeah, as well. Um, then I think the first question, if you was around, please repeat the first one.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So
Okay.
the last one says, what are the mode properties you play around with to achieve overbalance drilling? And then I think someone once asked, is it possible that we have access to the slide? So I think you can address the two questions simultaneously. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So what properties of mod? I mean, I said mod performs different things, right? In actual fact, you condition your mod to fulfill certain functions. So we usually have like the functions of mod. So for example, well control function of the mod, I need its density. So that property is the density. So I use weighing materials. I put some weighing materials, maybe like barite, for example, or heavy brine if you're using walkover fluid. So that affects the density. If you want your mod to carry, you know, your cuttings out, and all of that, you're talking about the carrying capacity of the mod. So you're looking about some mod rheological properties, YP, plastic viscosity, yield point. You want your mod, for example, to push back against the formation. So the weight as well helps that. If you want your mod to even be like a lubricant, lubricity, so more like oil because there's a lot of friction generated, grinding of pipes and against rock and all of that. So different properties, For example, now you might be using a water-based mod in shale, and that makes the shale formation to scatter. So you have some inhibition properties. But the basic principle is the function. Start with the functions. What do you want your mod to perform? What do you want your mod to do? And you now design your mod with putting additives or mod chemicals, to have the necessary properties to fulfill that function. So there are different things: inhibition, well control, managing torque and drag, lubricity, rheology, PVYP. So there are different properties of mod. So for the slides, I think I can share, but I might need to edit it a bit and remove maybe one or two pictures. But once I do that, I can probably maybe share that with the white picture.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Toba. We really appreciate you've really done justice to the topic. Okay, so some of us that ask questions about the slide can reach out to us later. And Mr. Toba, I'm sure he's going to release after he has done what he wants to do with the slide. He can send it to us and share it with you. Okay, some of us that are on the course, students, I'm sure you've learned a lot about well control today. And of course, those of us that are in the critical part of drilling, we've also learned a lot as well. So once you go back to the field, you pay attention to your well and of course, well control. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Toba, for this session once again. So without wasting much of our time, we quickly call on the technical team lead, the YP technical team lead, Mr. Nicholas, to handle this session. You can have the floor, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
So Nicholas, please can you give me a minute?
Okay, Mal.
Okay, sorry that I'm breaking protocols. So Toba, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking out time to come and share a little of all the things you do on a daily basis. We really appreciate. And I also want to appreciate his boss that is on this call, David Obiga. He's the one that approved for the training that you guys are going to. I am going to attend on Friday, the simulator training. So David, we really appreciate you doing this for us. Thanks to everyone. So I hand over to you, Nicholas. I just wanted to recognize his boss that is on the call. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, Israel, for anchoring and moderating this section. You've done a nice job. And once more, thanks to our boss, Toba, for giving us an excellent section on well control. We really appreciate it. Next slide, please, Israel. All right, so I'd like to call someone from the membership team to take a membership drive. Anyone on the call? Okay, I guess the silence means none of them is on the call. So I'll just quickly run through it. Next slide there. So for those of us that are already members of SP, nothing new, but for those of us visitors, I can identify 2 or 3 from my contact list that are not yet SP members. Oh, I see Emanuela joining the call. I don't know if she would want to take this. Emanuela Agbo, would you like to take the membership drive?
Yeah, sure.
All right, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Although I missed the part of the session because I was on transit, but so far it appears to be a wonderful session. Essentially, my assignment here is take the membership drive. I happen to be the YP co-chair and also the membership team lead for the young professionals. So if you're not aware of what SPE stands for, SPE means Society of Petroleum Engineers. Well, it's not just restricted to petroleum engineers alone. Anybody that has interest, any professional at all that has interest in the oil and gas industry or the energy industry at large can be a member of SPE. We have professionals and students as members, regardless of their experience or course of study, like I mentioned earlier. So if you are below the age of 35 or you have less than 14 years experience in the industry, you are a young professional. This is an encouragement for you to renew your membership if you are yet to renew your membership. We're in a new body, so we're in a new year, excuse me, so you're encouraged to renew your membership. And if you want to join SPE, say you're not a member of SPE, you can reach out to me after this meeting and I'll guide you through the membership process. If you have a friend that you believe would benefit greatly from SPE as you are benefiting, also connect me with the person. There are benefits for bringing people into SPE. I mean, right now, for the next 2 years, I won't have to pay for my membership fee because SPE recognized and rewarded me for my active participation in, recruiting new members. So this can be your story too. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ella, for that membership drive. Israel, please, next slide. Go down to the YP Energy Trivia Quiz.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Please hold
Okay.
on. Let's take the announcement before. I just take the announcement before I start.
All right. So next slide, please. Israel.
I think that will be previous slide, not next slide.
The previous, sorry, the previous. Okay, so there are a couple of activities coming up for the month of May, especially the monthly technical meeting. Next slide, please, usual. Every month the board organizes a technical meeting where something similar to what we are doing here, excuse me, something similar to what we are doing here, but mostly technical topics. We invite a renowned speaker and they come and share their knowledge in that field. So we'll be having one on Friday, 31st of May by 5:30 p.m. It's still online. If you look at our screen, you can see the registration link. You could also check our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and also our WhatsApp group chats. We've been circulating the message. You'll find the link there. Register and join us. Also, we have the May monthly industry quiz. It's still ongoing, which is supposed to close on the 30th, on Thursday. So it's not too late to jump in. Follow the instructions and you'll be spotlighted as our quiz winner for the month. So that's basically our activities for the month of May. I don't know, Justice, did I miss out anything you'd like to add?
Okay, so it is not yet, but just like I said, we're having a training at the World Simulation Center on the Friday. Yeah, even it's for limited persons. I know that the person that's supposed to be in that training, they already know themselves too, but that will be happening on Friday. Yeah, for limited persons. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. Okay, so thank you very much. So we have a tradition to keep our meetings memorable and fun. We usually do the YP Energy Trivia Quiz, taking some questions from the topic of the day, associated fields, and just some one or two SP current affairs. So let's quickly jump in. So give me a moment. Let me set up my screen. Then we start. All right. So please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. So on my screen, we have the joining instruction. You can either go to menti.com and enter the code 15414985, or you can scan the QR code on the screen to go to the site to join the quiz. All right, so 7 players have joined. The joining instruction is still on the screen. Join at menti.com. Use the code 15414985. 9 players have joined. Once we reach 15 players, or in the next 2 minutes, we will start. So we have 15 multiple choice questions. Depending on difficulty and the length of the text in the question, for sake of reading, 10 seconds to 13 seconds have been allocated to read and answer each question. Fastest fingers apply, so multiple people can answer the question correctly, but the fastest has more points. So speed and accuracy is important. So if we have one more player, I think we can start. Okay. I see people are enthusiastic to join the quiz, so let's just give them 1 more minute, then we start. The difficulty level is quite low. easy to intermediate questions, so nothing to be scared of. 16 players. All right, let's start. So remember, speed and accuracy. What is the primary purpose of a BOP in drilling operations? All right, so we have 13 correct answers. Question 2, 14 players. Let's go. Which method is commonly used for controlling a well kick? I remember very well the speaker mentioned it. All right, we have 8 correct answers. The driller's method. Question number 3. We have 15 players ready. Let's go. In well control, what does the term secondary control refer to? Okay, I know the BOP is somehow tricky, but remember, after primary barrier fails, automatically you've entered secondary, and the BOP is probably not the only mechanism for secondary control. The speaker mentioned something like pipe ramps for cutting the pipe based on the sizes. So please, let's take note of that. So we have 5 correct answers. Question number 4, 16 players are ready. Let's go. Which drilling technique involves drilling with a fluid column that is intentionally kept below the formation pressure? We have 12 correct answers. It seems like everything on this quiz was discussed in today's class. So let's see who is leading. Atiga Efyong Ayo is leading with 3,331 points. Good job. And Power has come close with 3,306 points. Let's see how it goes in the next round. Question number 5, 16 players ready. We'll go into a little bit of drilling now. Drilling. Rotary steerable systems, directional drilling. Correct. Improved accuracy in wellbore trajectory. I remember this speaker said in the tertiary well control, maybe after a blowout, you might need to drill a relief well directionally, requires specialists, and there are not a lot in the world, and it requires improved accuracy in wellbore trajectory. So probably they also use the rotary steerable systems while carrying out that job. Let's take notes. Question number 6. We have 16 players. Okay. All right. What is the purpose of a gravel park in real completions? All right, we have 8 correct answers. Question number 7. We are in the second phase of the quiz now. We've answered the first 6 questions. 17 players, wow, increasing. Okay, let's go. In completion operations, what is a packer? What is a packer in completions? Fifteen correct answers. Nice. Guess everyone knows this one. Question number 8. Which type of completion is typically used for wells with multiple production zones? Selective completion. Okay, so let's see who is leading. We are about to enter the final lap. Let's see if Atiga has retained her position or his position. Power has taken over. I saw that coming. He was actually the fastest in the previous round. Okay, so the final lap. Let's see if the winner will retain his position or there will be an overtaking. All right, so for question number 9, we have 15 players ready. Let's go. 16 players ready. Some current affairs, maybe. Which topic was a major focus at the most recent SP HCCE? SP current affairs. CCST, carbon capture and storage technologies. Okay, 5 correct answers. Question number 10, 17 players ready. Which recent technology highlighted by SP aims to improve well integrity monitoring? Fiber optic sensing. Okay, let's take note. I actually learned of that one during my research for this quiz. We learn every day. 17 players on the call. 11th question out of 12. Answer fast to get more points. What is the main component of drilling fluid that determines its density? The speaker mentioned it during the call, during the section rather. Ten correct answers. Be right. Correct answer. Now, the last question for today, 17 players. Let's go. What does the term NPT stand for in drilling operations? NPT drilling operations. Non-productive time. 14 correct answers. Thank you very much, guys. So let's look at our leaderboard and see if there are any changes. Wow. Wow. I like this. So Atiha Effiong Eyo, leader in the first round, got a little setback. and has come back to claim his position. So I don't know you. Can you give us a shout out on the chat box? If you can unmute, you unmute and give us a shout out so that we can recognize you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen and you continue. The winner in the as the winner identified himself or herself.
All right. Confirm you can see my screen.
Yeah. Okay. So next slide, please. All right. So once more, I'd like to thank each and every one of us for honoring our invite, joining today's meeting. I hope we learned something. I learned something. And that's the whole essence of SP, grooming engineers to serve the energy needs of mankind. We learn every day. Please remember our announcements on Friday. The section will be organizing something similar. Try to make our time to attend. I also want to thank all the senior members that honored our program with their presence. Special thanks to the speaker for today, my boss, Toba, for delivering an excellent session on well control. I appreciate the fantastic job by the moderator, Israel Emmanuel, for leading us through the different agendas. I appreciate. And to my boss, Justice, for giving me all the support necessary to see that this body is a success. Special thanks to each and every one of us once more. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you next month for the next monthly Insight Forum by the young professionals of Society of Petroleum Engineers, Port Harcourt section. Good night. So next slide, let's take the closing prayer or second stanza of our national anthem. All right. We are hoping that by our next meeting, we will have an updated version of the national anthem on the screen. So in place of prayer, considering possibility of mixed religion, we identify with the common body that binds us, which is Nigeria. I will take the second stanza of the national anthem as our closing prayer. As there is no audio, I'll quickly recite. O God of creation, direct our noble course, guide our leaders' rights, help our youths the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, in living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you all. The meeting is officially over.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.